This video is intended to describe two lightblade talismans, both named Abundance, of rendition number 36 and 37. They've been developed identically as absolute possible for a couple, so describing one of these talismans will be describing the other one impeccably so. Starting off with the transmutation ratio, consisting of smoky quartz and hematite in succession, igniting like so, up the sides to this lateral band right here, to be a closed loop quadrant of the transmutation ratio. Once again, of hematite being, once again, this is my whimsical stick figure chakra map I'll be utilizing for this crystalline tour. Hematite is a fantastic iron-based mineral that grounds all excess radial stray energies through the root chakra, through the earth stars into the Earth's meridian matrix for reprocessing. In tandem with smoky quartz to be the same stimulation pathway function in one ratio, smoke quartz, just like hematite, successfully compost all excess energy through the root into the earth stars, into the Earth meridian matrix for reprocessing or transmutation of energy by high yield dialysis with the earth plane consistently. It also works as a fantastic contingency to, of course, ground all the excess energy of the rest of this unit as a viable contingency to make the magic real, as well as keep the energy purified, particularly in the aspect of the wavelength designation of abundance. At the very apex right here, where the necklace eventually will be installed, will be clear quartz to be a neutral accelerant subcapacitation agent of this range up here, starting off with morganite, which is a pink ray beryl, actually a pink ray cousin to emerald of a precious notoriety of 8.5 out of 10 the hardness scale, which also means it has a very dense, strong, vivid heart chakra stimulation based on its beryl family atomical density. So it's very much a kind of a stronger version of rose quartz, to put it quite pragmatically. In tandem with clear quartz to neutrally accelerate the energy into turquoise. Turquoise, a classic stone of antiquity, of fifth chakra stimulation of earth, fire, water, and wind, thereby confining the terrestrial four elements of the Lakota medicine wheel in one focus, but luckily it's a very prominent fifth chakra clarity, which is of course very conducive to maintaining one's highest truth, particularly in the aspect of dharmic inheritance of one's abundant nature truly manifest. So this would be the abundance ratio, and like mentioned before, this would be 36 and 37, which means, of course, this exact ignition sequence has generated tremendous vibrational compound interest to this point, up to this date of 2025, since this abundance crusade began. Starting off with root-tilated quartz to be a neutral accelerant of this entire primary blade band of the abundance ratio. Going into moss green agate to be the quintessential green ray water elemental stabilization of the heart chakra. Going into golden healer quartz to be the quintessential gold white light source attunement frequency alignment, which is very self-evidently advantageous for any spiritual adept application, particularly in the realms of vibrational engineering concentration. To have a clean source alignment of the etheric nature of the heart of creation is obviously self-evident, particularly in tandem with such a high yield terrestrial green ray composition. Going into peridot, a fantastic earth elemental third and fourth chakra stimulant, that of growth, or essentially the vibrational crystalline equivalent of chlorophyll, how all this is possible, of course, of massive growth, which is very advantageous for massively expanding the abundance ratio. Then once again, root-tilated quartz to intensify the energy into the lovely, famous emerald. Emerald is a quintessential precious stone of green ray abundance, which is, of course, the king and queen of the green ray terrestrial heart chakra stimulation. Of course, it's truly a precious stone that's been well notarized throughout the documentation and reverence of human history. Thus, it's a true precious stone that most mortals have heard of, based on the fact that it's quite famous. So having that aspect of regal, intensive 8.5 out of 10 hardness, strong green ray emanation of legend, being at the heart of the abundance ratio, is quite essential. So that once again goes into golden healer quartz, then moss green agate, root-tilated quartz, peridot, golden healer quartz, emerald, and so on, completing the ignition sequence to be the abundance ignition sequence for this entire closed loop circuit, which by design is developed to be a very dramatic expansion of the heart chakra's capacity to be in the abundance sphere that could potentially outpace habitual familial scarcity patterns, which of course is a pretty much a widespread epidemic of humanity. So that's exactly why these contingencies have been so effective and also organically so well produced and prolific distribution at this point. So the aspect right there, this would be, of course, the blade band scaffolding, which would serve as a recirculation platform to, of course, vaguely resemble a figure 8 for energetic recirculation to the highest efficiency to close the circuit to generate a strong, consistent, stable vibration. And so the aspect also with the massive expansion of abundance between the peridot, the intensification and source alignment with the emerald also, of course, is to stabilize that wavelength with moss green agate, which is the most stable green ray water elemental heart chakra stimulant that I can get my hands on for this application, to quite simply stabilize that exaggerated expansion wavelength so that the consistency of the results are more pragmatic and more consistent, and most importantly, more tangible and stable. Well, like I mentioned thrice, this would be the primary blade band scaffolding. Next, I'll be mentioning the blade face components. And like I said, describing this guy right here will be describing this one impeccably so, because they were built as identical as absolute possible in sequence, since therefore a couple. So that the half sides can have, of course, the exact same vibrational platform to generate significant compatible vibrational compound interest. For that regard of their little couple dynamic unit, closed loop vibration. Anyway, so right here would be fluorite. Fluorite of the purple and green variety is a fantastic frequency generator of cohesion or cohesiveness or coherence. It takes any aspects of chaotic distortions in the field and brings order out of them very rapidly. So it's very advantageous to be a window elemental clearer of energy, and most importantly, a consistent stabilization of wavelength coherence in tandem with the quantum field. Then, right above that, would be a very, very special green ray stone that I've actually had the privilege of finding very recently that I haven't seen in person for sale for about 12 years now, is gaspiite. This extremely rare green ray crystal that has been quite coveted by myself to find in person for nearly more than a decade now, which is pretty dramatic to say out loud, is a very fantastic and very rare special green ray crystal of third and fourth chakra stimulation of Earth frequency, yet it also has its own very powerful dynamic Earth star engagement, which of course encourages the aspect of any abundant intention manifestations to encourage their tangibility into the Earth plane very consistently with one's heart's will to actually become a mastery. So it definitely is a manifestation magical green ray crystal. It's pretty special. And like I said thrice, a very, very rare crystal to utilize. So obviously this would be the first rendition of gaspiite incorporated into the abundance platform with 35 predecessors. I didn't have access to this crystal. Very fun fact. Then right here would be sunstone. Sunstone's a fantastic solar plexus and sacrum stimulant of feldspar nature, which makes it a very grounded, fiery, sunny vibration, which also brings extreme positivity and blessings and confidence and enthusiasm to the energy field. So the aspect also of sunstone being quite critical in the abundance platforms is with the high intake of the green ray heart chakra reception, which can be considered an intake or a yin polarity, the sunstone can work like the yang to be the output of positive vibrations. Quite simply in the aspect of when you feel vibrations very positively and you have confidence in your abundant endeavors, that encourages the energy to go out so the wavelength can quantumly collapse into the manifestation of one's abundant reality. So that's of course why they've been so prolifically utilized as, once again, the yang to the yin of the general abundance frequency. Then above that would be another precious stone of antiquity of ruby. Red ruby is a very fantastic corundum base, oftentimes 8.5 or 9 out of 10 the hardness scale, which means its red ray capacity has the most intense, dense atomical stimulation to the root chakra in the middle kingdom. Hence, it's another stone of true precious antiquity, and very much a zest for life, gusto, root chakra stimulant of great acclaim. Then over here on the back side would be sugilite. So like I said 5 times now, describing this, we'll be describing this to the absolute T. Sugilite is a very fantastic and rare purple ray wind elemental crystal of 6th, 7th, 8th non-physical chakra stimulation, yet it also has a very powerful bubble of light alignment through the entire auric field, and in my humble opinion makes a very clean frequency attunement to Michael or Michael the Archangel resonance field, which is obviously very self-advantageous for the spiritual adept. So Sugilite is a nice little bubble of light, high frequency inductor, so to speak, to bring, of course, psychic protection, the basics like that. Then above that is a rather exotic, very special crystal named Tanzanite. Tanzanite is a 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th chakra stimulant of the higher scaffolding, or a most impeccable heart-mind coherence engager in the mineral kingdom. So the aspect of having the heart and mind completely entrained, encouraged by this capacity, also is intensive dharmic efficiency, in my humble opinion. Hence, its employment is quite crucial. A lot to talk about, so obviously clearing the throat quite a bit. And the selenite and kyanite will be mentioned last by intentional design. So the next section I'll be getting into right here is where these lovely little green strips will be installed to serve as a hood. So the green leather has a purpose far more than aesthetic, which I'll describe right now. The aspect of having the green vibration of the leather also works as color therapy resonance stimulation to encourage green ray vibrations, as well as a way to insulate this entire section, so the efficiency of the energy by mitigating stray radial leakage of this entire section will be more efficient to run more perpetually sequenced through the apex and the primary blade band in sequence. So basically, it's developed to have the energy transfer more efficiently as well as a way to protect all these stones as they're being wielded as talismans, which of course can be quite the arduous task of being on a human all the time, jumping around, going on adventures, things of that nature. So this, of course, is developed to protect all these various crystals seen under here, which makes for a vast under the hood network, basically. And also, last but maybe least, is the aspect of being an aesthetic completion once, of course, it's adhered to a very pleasing fashion that looks artistically designed, or at least intentionally placed, will give a nice, very completed look to the construct as well. But indeed is far more than functional than aesthetic. Like everything in light tech, basically. So this next section right here, I'll be describing the black tektite. Black tektite is a product of nickel meteorite impacting sand, which carries the extraterrestrial energy of the stars that hits Earth. So it could be considered a great stone of heaven to earth, so to speak, and carries that very powerful cosmic impact into the Earth plane. Vibrationally speaking, that also produces a very high vibratory stimulation, but luckily it's a black ray crystal, so it has a great stimulation to the Earth stars to be a foundational raising of vibration to a high threshold. But like I said, the important fact about black tektite is that it makes a very stable ground-up foundational raising of vibration in its own right. That makes it very applicable for light body activating from a foundational standpoint of efficiency, that is. Then this next section right here, I'll be describing the three of the Holy Trinity of full light body master healer frequencies I incorporate quite religiously in various constructs. Starting off with the star argonite, the seraphinite, as well as the Tibetan black quartz, which I might as well describe in one shot, hence they have a very similar pathway function and they work great together as a trinity. So these three crystals of, once again, star argonite, seraphinite, and Tibetan black quartz have a fantastic full light body stimulation that works very diligently and very quickly in their own right, and especially together to dismantle any patterns of dis-ease found stored in the energy centers of the entire chakra column or nerve ganglia that transfer into a physical ailment for that capacity. So they, of course, work very fantastic to be very utilitarian, full light body healers that are very complementary to being in one's abundant state. Then over here would be fulgurite, which is actually petrified lightning, which is actually lightning striking sand, carrying the energy resonance of the power of lightning, quite literally, which was utilized as a shamanic spirit tool of antiquity to resonate with the frequency of lightning, particularly of First Nation shamans, to, of course, intensify the resonance of engaging the energy of lightning through the whole system, would intensify their prayers back to spirit as well as be a massive full light body activator by literally harnessing the power of lightning, is very similar to the entire energy body stimulation from top to bottom. So that's a very dynamic, bolstering, intensification effect to the entire auric field of that construct. And that actually would be the entirety of the crystalline composition for both 36 and 37, besides these guys down here. So the wooden core itself actually comes from oak from Sedona, Arizona, which is actually a tree that has its root system tapped into the Oak Creek waterway, which is a consistent water source 24/7 year-round of constant flowing water. So of course that oak tree is very abundant. So naturally the carbon-based resonance of that tree, that sacred one-legged, is always tapped into the water source of Oak Creek, which is consistently running by, purifying, as well as nourishing that tree for any water needs it has. So it's, like I said, a very abundant tree, which makes it a very triply appropriate frequency resonance core to this entire crystalline structure of dynamic range. So that aspect right there, once it's of course hewn like so, has the selenite seen right here. Selenite by itself is a very fantastic 6th, 7th, 8th, all the non-physical chakras back to one's higher self, oversoul, Godhead, as well as makes for a very fantastic key unlock to burn off the debris between one's conscious self and one's spiritual higher self. With that high frequency induction also makes for a very powerful transmutation through the entire system for all stagnant energies. So by the way, that of course makes it a tremendously fantastic master healer frequency, but where it really shines in any given spirit tool, like lightblade for that matter, of course, is the concept of this entire 16.5 minute rant involving both of these various crystalline structures. It also works to take this entire closed loop circuit running right past it on the primary right here. It works to purify all of these crystals in a contained emanation closed loop sequence. It also works to amplify or intensify, and perhaps most importantly, it also works to bring harmonization and equilibrium to the entire crystalline group. So with that triumphant trifecta being mentioned of the purification, amplification, and harmonization of this entire crystal pitch for maximum efficiency is quite critical for any given spirit tool. It doesn't matter what designation platform. Selenite, of course, is a staple for a very distinct purpose of a very functional light blade device, or light tech in various forms. I guess I never get tired of explaining how crucial it is to any given construct. Then, on both of these constructs, has been the exclusive utilization of black kyanite seen right here. So kyanites are the most rapid energy transfers in the mineral kingdom. So the exclusive utilization of black kyanite is of course encouraging the rapid transferability of this entire wavelength, frequency, pitch of dynamic scope and scale to ground as absolute quick as possible, and some illustrating as whimsically fast as possible to do my best once again to illustrate the concept of this grounding through very effectively. So when you take the entirety of this entire crystal pitch, and kyanite is the most rapid transfer of the black ray, which can also serve like a surge protector to ensure the high frequency yield is always getting into the earth as absolute possible for A, efficiency of energy function wavelength, so it actually grounds into tangibility, as well as, like I said, being a surge protector to ensure the high frequency abundance emanation is always maintaining a connection to Mother Earth for rapid transmutation and reprocessing as absolute quick as possible. Well, like I mentioned a few times now, that'd be the comprehensive tour of both Abundance Lightblade Talismans 36, 37 for a couple, which could be pretty exciting to see the manifestations of such a high yield dynamic range device in a twin format to do the voodoo it do on benefit for them as they serve creation. Well, that would be all. 1,000 blessings, and may the force be with us all.